Hey there, this is Andy C from Pieces of 8-Bit. Welcome to my channel and welcome to this week's video. This week we're going to be looking at 4 classics from the Atari 2600. This month I'm doing, as part of my A Month With series, I'm looking at the Atari 2600 Plus, which is a reimagined version of the Atari 2600 from the 1970s and the early 80s. Basically, it is a sort of 80% size unit, and at the end of this month I will be reviewing what it's been like to use that unit. It's been quite nice to have it sitting in the living room and plugs in through HDMI as it's a modern device. But one of the nice things about it is the fact that it still has all those nice sort of really tactile buttons on it. And most importantly, you can still play the original cartridges on it. So it comes with a cartridge itself with 10 games with some little dip switches on the back that you can adjust that loads up different games. And I've also bought a load of 2600 cartridges as well. Some of you may recall that I mentioned I found a little place in Cornwall and bought a load of little cartridges for a couple of pounds. Didn't know if they were going to work. Guy in the shop said bring them back if they don't work. I was like, no, it's okay, it's fine, they're £2 each. I spent about £20 in the shop in total. Came home, got some isopropyl alcohol on them, give them a good clean and made them work. And bearing in mind that some of these cartridges are 45, 50, oh not quite 50, but 47, sort of 48 years old. Some of them are as old as me, and things get a bit creaky at that age, as I know from personal experience. So yeah, they all work really, really well. So what I've done is I've picked 4 of my favourite Atari 2600 games. Some of them you will, probably all of them actually, you will have heard of. A lot of them are arcade ports that I've got on the platform as well. So those games are Centipede, Missile Command, Pac-Man and Space Invaders. So some absolutely huge titles in there for me to have a look at. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a bit of a playthrough. I've done some recorded footage already, so I'm going to do a little bit of talk over those and tell you a little bit about the game and also how they ported onto the Atari 2600, a little bit about the history. As they are Atari 2600 games from that era, they're quite short gameplay games, so they're about 5 minutes or so each, so I shall rattle through each one. I did the same for the Master System last month, played some arcade classics on there. Those I played for a little bit longer, only did 3. So yes, I think probably without waffling any further, let's dive straight into the gameplay and let's have a good old look and see what I thought. See you on the other side. Okay, so our first game up needs no introduction. This is Space Invaders, the Taito classic from the 1970s, and this came out on the Atari 2600 in 1980. It came with 112 different modes that you could play, and Atari did a pretty good port of this amazing arcade classic. You've got 36 aliens instead of the classic 55, and there are 112 modes of play. So anything ranging from your little sort of what do you call them, the little shield things moving around, to having invisible aliens, which is kind of somewhat crazy. So yes, as I say, an amazing game. This was really the killer app for the Atari 2600. So up to this point, the Atari 2600 had been selling okay. Oh, there's me, I accidentally switched it into black and white mode there. And this was the app that did it. I mean, obviously everybody knew about this game in the arcade and everybody loved it. And so, yeah, this was when this game came out. This shifted, I think, somewhere in the region. Well, it shifted millions of units. I haven't got the exact figure for the number of apps, number that it sold, but it sold a lot, and that's because people love the idea of taking a game like Space Invaders that was so playable and bringing it back home and having a go at it at home. So this is me having a go. I'm using, just for full disclosure, as I often do when I record, although I have been playing this on the Atari 2600 Plus, this is on what's called the Stellar Core emulator through OpenEMU. You can also use this through Launchbox as well. Very easy to get Atari 2600 emulators. There are loads of them around, and as you can see, they play quite well. I'm actually using a 4-in-1 joystick that I picked up. You'll see from another video, an AliExpress. Actually, was it AliExpress? Yes, it was AliExpress. I picked up like a sort of combat joystick, which I've been using, which actually works really, really well with the Atari games. I did have another one I did actually have an Atari joystick, but I just could not get it to work with this emulator. So that's what I'm doing. Yeah, obviously playing on the ordinary classic 2600 joystick in the living room. And as you can see, this game looks really, really good, doesn't it? So let's just pause the speaking for a second and just watch the end of this level. Or did I actually die at this point? I'm not sure. Yes, I did. So there we go. That is Space Invaders. So next up, let's have a look at Centipede. Okay, so this is Centipede from 1981. You're playing the part of the Bug Blaster, which is basically just this little orange square at the bottom. It changes colour as the game progresses. And what you're doing there is you're trying to shoot these little centipede segments, and as you shoot them, they turn into the little sort of rectangular platforms there, which are actually, I think they're supposed to be mushrooms. And we've also got other enemies that we see in here as well. So apart from the centipede itself, which is moving around, so I've just completed that first level, shot the segments, and the game just gets increasingly more difficult. We'll see them in a bit. You'll see fleas dropping down, and you'll also see scorpions scurrying about as well, which you can shoot for extra points as well. It does get quite tricky, this game. As you can see, the centipede bit comes along the bottom here, and you can move up and down a little bit as well, so you're not restricted to that bottom row. There's one of those fleas dropping down just there. So you just got to kind of move around and dodge them, and it gets quite hard if you don't shoot them. As with games like Space Invaders, once you start to get down to the last few bits, they start to move a bit quicker, and it gets quite hard to shoot them. As you can see, I'm struggling a bit there. And it will spawn, as it keeps coming in, it will spawn another one, which gets quite hard as well. So this was another game that was really, really well received. It got incredibly good reviews. People really liked it. Another game classic from the real golden age of arcade and gaming before the 1983 crash. So yes, a pretty enjoyable game. Let's have a look here. You can see, you kind of get notified that you've changed levels because all the colours change. Obviously, you've shot all the segments, but sometimes you just absolutely batter in the fire key. So sometimes you don't even realise you completed the level. So we're on about level 4 here now. And this is really just one of those sort of high score games. There's a lot of the games were of this era as well. And you can see you can see those spiders. They are such a nuisance after a while. The noise they make starts to get on your nerves. Yeah, I did all right, I think, in this playthrough here. I think I got through quite a few levels. There's another one of those little fleas dropping down. There was orange. Here we go. There's one of the scorpions. I don't know if you saw it sort of scurrying about at the top there. And it sort of made those squares flash. I'm not sure, or the mushrooms I should say, I'm not sure why they flash. I'm struggling a bit there. Yeah. There we go. Oh, there it goes again, the yellow one. They're quite good if you can shoot them, and getting that spider is quite useful. You just sort of get underneath it before it gets down to you. It's quite an addictive game, I have to say. It's quite an addictive game, and I think it's quite, like for the age of it as well. This is one of the, I think, more playable ones. It's got, quite fun sound, very colourful, requires quite a lot of skill, as a lot of these games in fact did. So yeah, just see who gets the highest score, I suppose. Let's just watch this for a minute or two, and then we'll move on to our next game. Okay, so this is Missile Command. This is a really cool game. This came out during the time of the Cold War, so there's no aliens in this. This is all about sort of some kind of missile guard activity where you've got a sort of anti-missile gun, and basically you are trying to stop the inbound missiles from destroying your base. I guess it's quite a simple story, and it's one of I suppose a bit of preemptive skill, a bit of sort of trigonometry, I suppose, in a way. But it's quite an addictive game, and it's also really quite difficult. Not quite sure what's going on with my refresh rate on that. It's a bit weird, but yeah, basically you can see I've got this 6 little sort of blue little blue buildings there, and then from the middle is my anti-missile thing that I'm shooting there. And you'll notice as the missiles come down, you send up your own sort of anti-missile weapon, and then it explodes, and then hopefully they're in the blast radius and it will destroy their missiles as they come down. So at the end of each level, so many missiles coming in, and at the end of each level it counts up how many anti-missile shots you've fired, and also looks at how many of the little base things you've got left, and then determines whether or not it determines how many points that you've got at the end of each bit. And obviously as each level progresses it gets increasingly more difficult, and it's quite hard because you're moving the little sort of white cursor thing there around with your joystick, so it's pretty difficult. The further up they are, the further out they have to be to give your weapon time to travel and then explode, and then for the missiles to be in the blast radius. And obviously the nearer they get, the more panicked it gets. Basically once all 6 of your bases have been destroyed, then that's game over. There we go, there's the first. In fact I lost 2 in that one section there, so it's getting quite tricky now. I think I did alright in this run through. Having said that, I lost 2 quite early on there. But I think I get one back later on. I think you start to get some back. I'm not sure what the criteria were to get them back, and I'm sure people who are big fans of Missile Command will be telling me. So yeah, this just a little bit of history of this game then. So this came out in 1980 in the arcades, and it was ported to the Atari 2600 in 1981. And again, this game was a really big hit. People really love this game. And yeah, in the EU, interestingly, it was actually distributed by Sega, which is quite interesting, I thought. But yes, amazing game on the Atari here. So let's just watch a little bit more of the gameplay here. Very simple, but very challenging actually. It's very challenging. You see, I've now only got 1 base left. One of the strategies with this game, as well, is if you've lost all of your other bases, you almost don't, all the other little buildings, you kind of don't want to protect it. You just sort of need to protect your own gun and any remaining bases that you've got left. So whilst the missiles are coming in a bit quicker at this point, obviously if you've lost a few, then you can just focus on where they're coming in there, and that should be fine. So yes, I suspect it's a weird refresh rate thing going on here. To do with the emulator and how it's recorded, so I apologise if it's a little bit all over the place. As I'm watching this back and doing the voiceover, the graphics have gone a bit peculiar. Oh yes, there's another thing as well. You get these sort of little homing missile type things that appear as well. I need to stop those. Those don't sort of have that line ahead of them. You see there, look, on the right hand side there, the leftmost base has reappeared. So I think it might be something to do with the number of points I've got. That would be my guess. So I've got another chance there. I thought I was done for, and then just at the end of that level it respawned a new one. There we go. It's hit my gun, but I think that's okay. Let's see how we get on. I think this is pretty close now. Did I manage to get that one? Yes I did. It's all getting very quick now. It's another one of those homing missile things there. I thought I was done for at that point. Again, they're a nuisance, especially in these as the game gets on, it gets more and more tricky. One more left still managed to hang on to that one little turret. It's getting quite difficult now. Oh, there we go, that one's gone. So now it's just an exercise in getting as many points as you can, because this is going to be game over after this. So yes, it's getting very tricky now. A lot of the time it's not even just preventing them from hitting things, it's just literally just trying to stop them. There we go, and we're going to get the sound. There we go, that sound is telling us that it's game over. Big explosion, and that's it. So let's move on to our last game now, Pac-Man. So another classic that needs no introduction. This is Pac-Man, an incredibly popular game, first of all in the arcades, and a really lovely looking game even now. This is the Atari 2600 version of it, the port of it. It was an incredibly popular game. It sold 8 million units, came out on the 2600 in 1982. Quite a lot of visual changes. One thing you will notice is that the ghosts are all the same colour. Yes, again, I've got some weird issues with my refresh rate here. I suspect it's to do with the frame rate that I've picked for the video. Yes, it's yeah, quite different visually. There's no fruit, but there is a vitamin pickup that you can do, which appears just sort of under their base there and gives you some extra points. I think I failed to notice that there. You do still pick up your power pills, but you're now picking up wafers randomly. So yeah, this was an absolute bestseller at the time, and as you can see as well, other differences, there's a different maze as well. But actually, critically, it was panned, and you can kind of see why. I mean, if you cast your mind back to what the arcade version and versions of Pac-Man on other systems look like, then this really is. It does look kind of poor. I have subsequently played Ms. Pac-Man, which I have also for the Atari 2600, and that is a much better looking game. Still quite basic, still a lot of differences to its arcade contemporary. Got to remember, of course, that this is a much less capable piece of hardware, so you know, it's always going to struggle to emulate. But I've played other versions of Pac-Man on systems of, you know, similar sorts of ages, and they do a better job. This is not a particularly good version of Pac-Man. The controls are a little bit annoying, so you just, I mean, it's always a little bit of a thing with Pac-Man, you know, when you're trying to get down, like when you're sort of halfway along a bit and you want to sort of go down one path of the maze, and it sort of just ignores you and you carry on and run straight into a ghost, which is something that you've probably just seen me doing here a couple of times. So yeah, it's not amazing. I don't know why I keep missing the vitamin there. That would have been quite useful. I think that gives you an extra life. Instantly as well, when you complete each maze, you do get an extra life back. So it's not like the arcade version. You know, once you've used all your lives, that's kind of it. So yes, that is Pac-Man. Yeah. It's okay, and I think what you got to remember here as well is that if you cast your mind back to the time in the early 80s, people just hadn't had the option to play arcade games in their homes. So the ability to be able to play the games that we've talked about today, so Centipede, Missile Command, but very much Pac-Man and Space Invaders, two absolute classics, which continue to be absolute classics today as well. You see modern recreations of both of the games in arcades and loads of different versions of Pac-Man. People just love it, you know, and they are you know, they are just timeless classics. And so the ability to be able to bring home those games and play them in your own home at a time when consoles were just not a popular thing, they just weren't a thing, people just didn't really buy them. This was incredible, you know. I would have been blown away with this, and I remember playing a version of Pac-Man on the PC, an 80s version on the PC, and again, it's not a great port, but it was Pac-Man, you know, like I'm playing Pac-Man on my PC at home. So really cool. So there you go, that is Pac-Man from 1982. Let's go back and have a little chat about all of these games. So there you go, there are 4 of my favourite games that I played on the Atari 2600 so far through this month. What did you think? Well, I certainly enjoy those games. I think, you know, Pac-Man is always very playable. Space Invaders, I think out of all of those games, Space Invaders is probably my favourite. Missile Command is really good as well. And the more you sort of get into Missile Command, you can really start to improve as you kind of get the hang of where you need to put your little sort of aim point, your crosshairs. So, you know, really good fun little games, I think. I'll be honest with you, I do struggle with games of this age. You know, there's some games that I've gone back and played, so things like Combat. I have kind of struggled with those games a little bit. It's not like the Master System last month, where, you know, you've got games that just are so easy to go back and revisit and are timeless and you know, very colourful. We're talking about going back another generation, and it is it is challenging, and I'm not sure whether I would necessarily go back and play these games, you know, think, oh, you know what, I'm going to go back and play a bit of Missile Command, or I'm going to go back and play a bit of Centipede. I'm just not sure that I would. Having said that, you know, going back and playing them is kind of good fun, and it's good to kind of reminisce about what it was like. And bearing in mind how little power the Atari 2600 actually had at the time, it's quite impressive, really, to see what the games can do, and you know, how innovative they were. They really had to be. They had to be innovative. So it's all about the gameplay. You didn't have the graphics. You didn't have the sound. And so, you know, that they are good fun to go back and play. And I would definitely suggest digging out the Stellar emulator, or grabbing something like Launchbox or OpenEMU, or grabbing a Raspberry Pi and popping the 26 or running the 2600 emulator on there. I think, you know, it's good to go back and reminisce. But what I would say is it's probably one of those things that you're gonna do if you remember playing those games yourself back in the day. And I have played these with the kids. I have especially with my eldest son. I played Combat with him, and we also played Indy 500, and that was quite fun, but quite limited appeal, I think, for them. You know, when they're playing on PlayStation 5 games, I think they find that a bit of a struggle. Whereas some of the newer consoles from the sort of later in the 80s, you know, the Master System, especially the Mega Drive, they have got much more sustained appeal and much more of that come back and play it sort of thing. That said as well, I mean, when we've played some of the original arcade versions of some of these games, so specifically Pac-Man, Space Invaders, also things like Donkey Kong and stuff like that, then they do play really, really well in the arcades, and you will see kids playing on those. But I think these Atari 2600 games are just a little bit too old now to really have that broader appeal. But that all said, hopefully you found that really interesting. I've enjoyed playing those games, and I am enjoying having the 2600 Plus to play. I'm going to see if I can try and get some 7800 games for it as well, because it will play those. And I believe the actual console itself is running the Stellar emulator. Please don't quote me on that, because I don't know for sure, but I believe that it is running the Stellar emulator, which is exactly the same one that you'll see on the Raspberry Pi if you're doing if you've got a RetroPie build, or you're playing on something like OpenEMU or Launchbox. So yes, hope that was interesting. Hope you enjoyed the little bit of history lesson there. Really, really good fun games. Like I said, I think probably Space Invaders is my favourite. I love the fact that you've got all the different modes in these games, and that's the same for a lot of the games as well. You could kind of switch the game mode button on the 2600 and change the game mode, and it would do all sorts of different things. You'd have your instruction manual, which should tell you about it. None of the games that I've got instruction manuals anymore. But yes, that's it. So I think that's probably it for this week. So coming up on the channel, Retro Red Steve has launched his new challenge for this month. So the lap time challenge coming up is going to be Ridge Racer, which I'm really excited about, because I haven't played PlayStation 1 version of Ridge Racer for some years, so I don't really know how good I'm going to be at it, but it is a game that I know for once. So I'm hoping that I'm going to do a bit better this time, but that remains to be seen. We've got another console coming up next month. I have decided what I'm going to pick, but I'm not going to tell you. I will tell you a bit nearer the time what I've decided to pick for my next month with. Obviously I'll have the month with review for the 2600 itself as well. And do you know what? I'm really, really keen to go back and play some more stuff on the Dreamcast. Oh, I haven't got it here. I've put it away. Yes, I am really keen to play on the Dreamcast a little bit more. I've been playing on that a little bit just lately, and really, really loving that. So there might be some more games coming up for that. I had a bit more of a play of Sonic after my review last week. Obviously, I was playing it on the emulator with it was actually a Nintendo Switch controller. One of their Pro controllers, so I was having a play on there, and I was struggling with it a little bit, I have to be honest, and it looks like I can't play it very well, and you'd be right, I can't. But I actually booted it up on the Dreamcast itself earlier, and had a play with the proper Dreamcast controller and everything else like that. It was much, much easier. So I think that's definitely a lesson there, is that if I'm going to emulate, maybe I need to get something that looks a little bit like a Dreamcast controller that I can plug into USB, but probably just play out the Dreamcast. Yeah, I got quite a little bit further than I did when I played before, and I figured out a little bit further on the second level there as well what I needed to do. So yeah, and I didn't lose any lives, more importantly, on that very first boss. That very first boss is actually very easy when you're playing it on the Dreamcast directly. So go check that out. I probably should have reviewed it after I played it a little bit more, to be honest with you. But yes, I was a bit short on time last week, so I didn't really get a lot of opportunity to really give it a proper stretch of the legs, which I normally like to do. So there you go. That was a long what's coming up, and I ended up talking about something that I've already done. So, but I think the point was that I'm going to come back and play some more Dreamcast games. I'm going to give them a bit more of a play on the Dreamcast before I come and do the reviews as well. So that is it for this week. I think that I will probably sign off at this point. So if you've enjoyed that, as always, please do hit that like and subscribe button. Really do appreciate it. Yeah, that's it for today. So until the next time, I'll see you around. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.